So I saw a post on the Manalort subreddit where someone was having trouble managing food in the town. So I replied with a bunch of suggestions that I thought might help. And at the end of it, I said, why not just send me the save files and then I'll try. So here we are. It's just past the first winter, 13 months, in fact. And with a population of 25 and only 19 food in storage, that he wasn't kidding. I checked the food tab and saw berries, carp, and cabbage. And in the records tab, I noticed a healthy export of salt. So that's a good sign. That means we have money to start veggie farms. Because if you're playing in the first year and are facing food issues, it's almost always because you didn't make any veggies or not enough of them. In this case, while there are cabbages, having produced only 36, sort of tells me there's only one cabbage plot and a tiny one. I'm ignoring the wheat bread because that's the starting food and there's no production of that. But the berries and carp are what I'm interested in because I need to know if these will continue to produce in surplus for the next 4 months. The time it takes to actually grow new veggies. So I inspect the fish pond, which, while overfished, has a small amount. The berries are not only small but also low. But since it's spring, both the berries and carp will grow, so we're in good shape for the next 3 months. At this point, I'm looking at the rest of the town. I spot a farming area. I see 6 fields. I just go ahead and check the fertility and notice that that's a decent spot for rye and wheat, but not so for barley and flax. I zoom out a little to check the rest of the map, and I noticed the south of the town actually has a nice spot with high fertility for all 4 crops, and that might have been a better position for the farming district. I'm not going to be changing this, but it's something to think about at the very start of the game. So I hit tab to inspect the burgage plots. This town is built in a nice, historically accurate design with many small burgage plots. And I'm happy to see that most of them have extension areas, but the ones that are intended for veggie and fruit are way too small. There are 2 veggie plots, but only one of them is seeded. I won't be buying the seeds for this one because I'll be making a new one. And this is the small cabbage plot. At this size, you'll be lucky to have 70 cabbages every 18 weeks, which is only enough for about 4 families. So that should tell you how many of these you're going to need if they were all this size. There's a cute little burgage plot in this forsaken area. This one's inefficient because of the shape, and this one's actually large enough to be upgradable into a duplex. The bad news is I'm going to be demolishing most of these because with 7 vacant homes, it's going to take 7 months for my new veggie plot to be populated and start growing. So it's not just enough to build the new plot, it needs to be populated. But before we do that, I'm just going to check what else we've got. We have a livestock training post. We have sheep being imported. Logging camp's pretty far away, so it's the saw pit. Strangely, there's a sheep farm in construction here. That's way too far. It should be close to the sheep. We'll rebuild that later. We're back at the fish pool. I see there's 40 fish and 2 families. We don't need 2 families. One family can extract over 30 fish in a month, and we don't have that many left. And when May 1st hits, we're only going to be getting 16 more fish. That's 40% of 40. That's how the growth works. That'll sustain this town for an additional 3 weeks. So at this point, I don't think we need to reduce the fishing threshold and risk further depletion of this pool, which at the current levels will take 2 years to recover, and I don't want to make it worse. I'm going to build out this road, trying my best to stay on brand with the original design intent. And now it's time to get rid of all these plots. And then I'm also going to be putting a logging camp, because in order to then use that space, I need all those logs to be picked up first. And the only place that can store them is a logging camp, and our logging camp is too far away. And before we unpause, I'm going to be wanting to actually start farming some of these fields because we do have the people. I'm going to be pausing the 3 at the bottom because they are the least fertile, while for these 3 at the top, I'm going to be doing a 3-field rotation of wheat, flax, and barley. The flax and barley only need 120 days to grow, so starting in April is a good idea. The wheat, not so much, but since we've got the people, we might as well use them. I'm just double checking that I've got the rotation right, where for every field, there's going to be one of every crop every year. Field sizes over 0.5 Morgan do need to be plowed with ox. Those 3 fields are about 0.7 each, which means I'll need 3 families and at least 2 ox. But since wheat, barley, and flax aren't exactly the priority this September, I'll just be assigning what's available. Okay, now we're ready to unpause. We're just dealing with some bandits here. I'm just going to make sure our retinue is on push forward and the archers have their order, and then now we unpause. It's no surprise that 36 archers make short work of them, so I'm giving the order for the archers to sprint all the way home before I disband them, because I want the workers to be back in their jobs as soon as possible. And while they're running back, I'm going to be taking advantage of this wonderful salt export revenue and getting a bunch of chickens. And if you're looking for a guide to know how many pigs, goats, and chickens you should have, I have a spreadsheet for that, so you can check my previous video titled Animal Research. But for this case, I'm targeting a pigs, goats, chicken ratio of 7 to 4 to 5. That'll get me into surplus of pork, eggs, and milk. The retinue has reached the bandit camp. While I typically go for treasury, this time I'm going to take the spoils because I suspect they've been stealing food. And when you take the spoils, you take all the food back. So we got 6 fish back, less than expected, but still. And 6 food for 23 families. It just bought us an additional week of food survival. Now, we're up for an intensive building phase, so I want to make sure we have enough logs. So I checked the saw pit and noticed we don't have a plank limit, and we do have more than enough planks. So I'm going to set a plank limit, and I'm going to raise the log reserve because we're going to need a lot of logs. It's the 1st of May. We just got 16 fish from the last growth spurt for the year. That'll last us about 3 weeks. I forgot to disband the army, which I'm doing now, and I hope that'll speed up the construction. Now some space is now cleared. I'm going to show you how I'm going to fit a nice, huge veggie plot in this location. The burgage plot drawing tool works best when there are roads for the tool to snap onto. So that's why I'm building these helper roads, so to speak. And with a little clever manipulation of the shape, you can actually force the houses to be in one spot and the entire extension to be in the rest of the spot. Since the original design called for all the houses to be in a row like this is what I came up with. And since we have the new immigration, we're going to put 3 families on the farm. And by having 0 vacancies and only 1 plot under construction, this new plot is now guaranteed to get the new immigrant in June. I got rid of the temporary logging camp and reassigned the ox to the original. I checked the animals and confirmed that I do have 4 pig pens and 5 chicken coops that I need for pork and egg surplus. I'm 5 days away from the next immigration, and I'm being careful not to perform the vegetable farm upgrade in case it doesn't finish before the 2nd of June, because even though it's a vacant home, if it's under construction of any kind, it won't accept a new immigrant, and you're going to have to wait till next month. I'm making a second mega veggie plot here, and I think I managed to get a plus 400% with a really tiny dead space. I was really happy with that. Now in the beginning, 2 families won't be able to fully utilize this size, but at level 4 with 4 families, it will be awesome. Now I intend to have 3 of these mega farms, 1 for each veggie, and once that's settled, most of the remaining houses should be single plots with extensions, but the majority of them need to be dedicated to animals. In this case, I still need to make 7 goat pens, so that's what those singles were for. The new family's in, so I'm going to upgrade this to veggies. I put a windmill and a weaver, and eventually also a malt house. Those will need to be done by September. These 2 mega farms are going to be carrots and cabbages. I go with carrots first because that's going to take 14 weeks instead of 18 for cabbages. That means a whole bunch of carrots in the middle of September. So that's going to be great. It's literally going to be hundreds of veggies at that point. So it's always a good idea to have additional granaries and storehouses as you expand away from your initial starting position. And on this point, you can see why it's beneficial to have fewer larger veggie farms instead of multiple smaller ones, because that means fewer trips for the granary workers. You can also see we're making good use of this reclaimed dead space. Apart from granary, storehouses, and marketplaces, you can also put water wells, foresters, malt house. Basically, any small building will fit. You can even place a single burgage plot sideways, but I'm avoiding that to maintain the original aesthetic rule, which is to have all the houses pointing toward the center for some reason. Now I'm making the final mega veggie farm. This one turned out to have the best dead space. Look at that, plus 250% in a tiny footprint. That's going to be for beetroots, and with 3 of these mega veggie farms, we are set all the way for triple veggie surplus, all the way up to 60 families. So that's way into the future. Basically, we'll have enough to export a ton of cabbages. I'm moving the sawmill closer, getting a bunch of goats, and then in this area where I deleted the duplex, I'm putting in 2 singles. Just to the south of here, I noticed there was a smithy making tools from imported iron slabs, but I'm going to go with a blacksmith to replace it eventually. The advantage of the blacksmith being that I can also make iron parts, because I do intend to replace those archers with crossbowmen. And with that blacksmith, you want to keep that dialogue box up and babysit it, because as soon as it's done, it's going to start making spears. So if you don't want to do that, keep that box on top. Now I'm going to go with 36 iron parts. That's enough for 1 full platoon of crossbowmen. Together with 5 retinue, that's going to handle the raiders no problem. I click on the bowyer and almost got a heart attack when I saw that there was no limit on the bows. So I switch it over to crossbows, set the crossbow limit to 1, and then create the crossbow platoon. This way, as soon as a crossbow is made, it gets picked up by a family, at which point the bowyer would then make 1 more crossbow until everyone's eventually equipped, but then there's no risk of making too many crossbows. We don't have natural iron in our region, so forgetting to stop crossbow production would be painful. Remember this triangular plot? We can definitely fix that. But before I build any new burgage plots, my beetroot farm is currently unpopulated, so with 1 current vacancy, I'm looking for an existing house to demolish to force the population into that beet farm. And with a 10-week growth cycle, we're also looking at mid-September harvest. So we're going to have beets and carrots. This triangular space is best utilized by making 2 singles, which was easy to do. And with 5 extra families, I'm looking for more trading to happen. So for the trading post, I'm trying to get a non-veggie family to be assigned. So how trading works is the husband is the one who makes the long trips, and the wife and son help transport the goods between trading post and the storage buildings. And how the veggie farms work is only the wife and son work the backyard. So veggie families should not be trader families. And with exports in good shape, I'm looking to see if I can start mass importing the sheep to the desired number of 30. And I forgot to do this earlier, but charcoal kiln should always be a priority in the first year of the game. They are twice as efficient as firewood when it comes to converting trees to fuel. And trees are quite precious in the sense that they take a long time to grow. And that's assuming you have foresters, and we don't. And we do have an interest in keeping the number of trees high in this region, because with so few fish, we are going to be depending on pork for the meat satisfaction of the people. And pork production is higher if there are more trees in the region. So save the trees by burning charcoal instead of firewood. So I'm checking the food supply here and I noticed that we're out of carb. With 0 carb and only a small amount of pork, I'm not going to be able to make many level 2s, and I do need to have some level 2s ready to make artisans, and I'm looking to make a brewery and tailors. So now's the time to reduce the fishing limit and get additional 10 fish. And now that September's here, I'm also looking for places where I can take off families in order to put into the farms. So with 3 working fields, I'm going with 3 families and 2 ox. Just gotta remember to assign those ox. In the latest version of 0.8.65, bakers are only available at level 3 burgage plot, which we're not getting anytime soon, unfortunately. So I'm gonna be placing a communal oven in order to still have some bread in the meantime. They produce half the amount of bread for a given amount of flour compared to a bakery artisan. In the past, we could skip this and just go straight to bakery, but with the change to the bakery requirement, we are now going to see more use of the communal oven. First harvest is bringing in the flax. I have a weaver converting it to linen. Unfortunately, I misclicked and converted one of the level 2s to a brewery, so I'm going to have to find another level 2 to make a tailor, but I'm out of planks. I quickly realized that everyone in the saw pit was sick, so like any good employer, I fired them and replaced them. Now we're coming to the end of September. In October, the fields will flash over as they rotate to the next crop. The farmers will continue to work threshing the wheat sheaves into grain, so I'm moving people into the windmill. And in a few moments, when the communal oven finishes, we'll also add people there. It's pretty common up to the mid-game, meaning less than 40 families, that you'll have to shuffle people around between the seasonal buildings and the non-seasonal ones. And for beginner players, it might seem like it feels wrong, but experienced players know that this is to be expected. And even when you're past 40 families and you finally have enough people for all your buildings, it might actually feel a bit boring. In this game, we're not there yet. We're just into the first harvest of the main field crops. We've not settled our animal produce yet, and we haven't got our tailor yet, and also the malt house. And we're in October of year 2. If you're interested in the optimal playstyle to achieve all of this quick, I have a short video series on how to do this titled Optimal Play, where we achieve a level 2 church, clothes, ale, and level 3 housing within 2 years. And it all hinges on the basic concepts of maximizing your immigration, starting exports as soon as possible, and then quickly following up with veggies in the first year. Now back to this game and checking the crop fields, and notice that plowing and sowing is already done, so I can take the people out and put them back in the other buildings. And while the malt house is under construction, I'm following up with a tavern. And a note about the tavern is at level 1, it's pretty limited, both in the capacity and the number of people it can employ. It's always a good idea to upgrade it as soon as possible. Then you can reach about 50 burgage plots. Even if you don't have 50 level 2 burgage plots, having 2 families in the tavern really speeds up the ale logistics. Now a quick status check on the food. We've got a good surplus of eggs and cabbages and also wheat bread, but fish and meat are still a problem, and we can't depend on the fish anymore because we overfished it, so we are going to need to make lots more pigs. During the winter, when major food production is on hold, this tends to be a more relaxing time where you get to spend effort on clearing bandits if you have any bandits. So I'm sending the retinue out and getting some mercenaries, paying attention to where they will spawn. It's a good idea to get the ones that are closer to the bandits you're trying to attack. So I pretty much left the bandits alone during the active season because I wanted to wait for the best time when there are multiple bandits so that I can hire the mercenaries and deal with all of them in one shot during the 30 days that they're paid for. When I realized that the first camp was already abandoned, no one came out to fight, I moved the mercs to the lower camp. And that leaves the retinue free to just come in and collect. And for the first camp, I opt to go for treasury. That way the mercs pay for themselves. And in the second camp, those actually had brigands. So I moved the melee units to attack and the archers to go capture the camp. Then I noticed there's a second brigand group coming out of the forest. So I simply just stepped back and walked around them. If you've had a lot of important goods stolen, you should take the resources back. But in this case, I just opted for treasury. And once the bandits are cleared, just remember to immediately dismiss them. If they cross into the second 30 days, you're going to have to pay their salary again. Now back in town, we're going to get more artisans, so I'm going for butcher. These will help me get some extra meat from the lambs. And where the butcher is concerned, don't slaughter anything. Let the lambs grow into sheep until you've got 30. In this case, we've got a lot of money, so I'm just going to buy all 30 sheep and start slaughtering lambs as soon as they appear. With 30 sheep, you're getting about 5 or 6 lamb a month. That when slaughtered, that's 5 or 6 mutton and hide. And to buy sheep fast, you're going to need to maximize employment at the livestock trading post. Since one trader alone, it's going to take you years to get 30. And regarding goats, still far behind. I need 7 goat pens. We've only got 3. And if that calls for more single plots, don't be afraid to build them. Regarding clothing, we've only got 1 tailor. So until you have the resources to make 2, it's fine to just focus on 1 type of clothing. In this case, since we've got flax pretty early, I was okay to not have a sheep farm to gather the wool from the sheep. So again, winter is a good time to plan ahead. In this case, I'm planning ahead for a second tailor so that I can make 2 types of clothing. It's not necessary because you can toggle 1 tailor between 2 types of clothing, but for my playstyle, I don't want to manage that, so I go with 2 tailors. And eventually for baker, that's what I also do. I get 2 bakers, 1 for each type of bread. So we've survived the entire winter. It's coming into March, and in a few moments, I want to draw your attention to the top, where the massive food harvest from the massive veggie plots are coming in. And that's going to happen every few months. So we've officially solved the hunger problem here, but we have a new problem. The raiders are here. And now it's time to test your combat skills. You see I've already got the retinue deployed out here. It's always a good idea to have 1 military unit deployed. That way enemy units will beeline straight to it instead of your homes and buildings. If you don't have any units deployed, the enemy just comes in and starts setting things on fire. And retinue is a good unit to have deployed out in the open. There's no cost to doing that, as opposed to using the militia, where if they're out deployed, they're not working. So you can see I haven't activated the militia yet. So I just keep playing, waiting for the enemy to arrive nearby. You'll constantly get warnings when the enemy's been spotted, so it's no problem. And they're finally here. I get a warning as soon as they appear out of the forest. So now it's time to deploy the crossbows. And in a few moments, you'll see why. When using ranged units, it's super important to put them behind the melee units. Since ranged units don't have armor, they die pretty quickly, but melee units typically have more. And retinue are famous for having extremely high armor. Retinue are good at surviving, but we depend on the ranged units at the back to cut the enemy down. I don't have the rough numbers, but from personal experience it feels like crossbows kill about twice as fast as warbows. Before attacking the next unit, I first do a formation instruction. That's by doing a drag right click. That way every ranged unit is already in perfect position. as soon as the attack command is given. As soon as they rout, it's fine to dismiss them immediately so they go back to work. Oh, and one more thing. Archers require a line of sight, so that's why I picked this open field to conduct the battle. It's also pretty close to the church, so the corpses get dealt with as quickly as possible. And of course, you have to staff the church. If you leave the corpses on the ground, they do go away after a while, but you will incur an approval penalty. Now, it's spring. We're sitting at almost 300 food. I could stop the video right here and say mission accomplished, but why not? Let's continue. So I'm looking at these 3 fields. I think it's the right time to enable them. But before that, I just check the rotations and set them correctly. And to staff these farms up, I'm making sure I'm not taking any veggie families, as farmhouses require the entire family to work. And with 3 fields, I need 3 families and all 9 workers. The perfect families for this job are going to be those animal backyard families. It can be a little tedious and painful to have to do this every time you need to staff the farmhouse. So I'm only planning to do this once. So I'm doing it right, and I'm not taking the workers out of the farmhouse from this point on. When you do this, you have to keep track of what the families were doing previously, because you do have to go back and staff all those buildings back up. We have plenty of veggies, but not much fruit. Fruit aren't actually required for progression, as level 3s can be upgraded with just 2 animal produce. So if you've got eggs and milk, you don't need a single fruit. However, if you can manage fruit surplus for all 3 fruits, and that does require a huge investment in fruit seeds, and by that I mean thousands in regional wealth, then those 3 extra fruit reduces the burn rate on all your other foods, especially things like milk and chevin, which can be hard to keep in surplus. Now the mega fruit farms are going to be at least plus 400%, and of course I'm also going to be manipulating the shape of this one. And in this one, we managed to get plus 450% with a tiny dead space. And the cutout that's left behind, which you saw me measure with a corpse pit, because a corpse pit happens to be the same length as a burgage plot with a tiny extension. It's going to be perfect for all the animals that I need. This right here is perfect for 5 more goat pens and a ton of milk. Now I'm out of ale, and ale has been a huge problem for many players in the recent patches. Even with good fertility, I'm actually not farming enough of it, with only 1 field of it from the last harvest. It's not going to be enough, so I'm supplementing it with barley imports. We can all hope and pray for a balance fix in the next patch, but until then, I've adapted my playstyle around ale mechanics. And that means farming a lot of it, and if you can't farm it, you have to buy it. And in order to buy it, you have to have good exports, and that could be from rich salt or rich iron, or if you don't have those, you're going to be exporting veggies. And by the end of the video, I'm going to prove to you that you don't need more than 3 of those mega farms. In this playthrough, we have plenty of money to go buy barley, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't grow it at all, especially if you can. In this case, fertility is good, so I'm going to be taking advantage of it and do 2 fields of barley every year. And for that, we're going to need a second farmhouse. And the reason for that is really that 1 farmhouse can only have 2 ox. And for 6 fields, we actually need 5. Fast forward to September, an additional 3 families in the second farmhouse. Those are going to be doing great. Pork, milk, and eggs are in comfortable surplus. This burgage plot is now ready to become the first level 3, which will be my baker. And we're now sitting with 72 crossbows. That's going to keep us safe from raiders for years and years to come. Now, for this row of plots, I left them alone because they weren't bothering me, but now that I actually need the space, I'm starting to clear them out. Once the logs get picked up, I'm going to be putting more single plots for animal extensions. After spending about 600 regional wealth on pears for the first mega fruit farm, I'm now setting up the second one, which is probably going to be apples, and then the last one, quinces. It's finally winter again, and I'm upgrading the veggie farms. I've been waiting quite a few months for this. Ideally, each house can be upgraded as soon as you see no work activity in the backyard. But if you simply wait for December, then there's no work in any of them, and then you can just do a mass upgrade. When your town starts getting big and you have tons of burgage plots, it is a requirement that you have additional storehouses for the very important purpose that a storehouse is close by to a burgage plot that needs to refuel, which they do every month. They'll send one person every month out to a storehouse to collect fuel. Same deal with the water wells. So definitely don't assume that you only need storehouses where the industry is, because every burgage plot needs a storehouse. If you're in the late game and people are freezing, even though you've got a ton of fuel, it's probably because the storehouse is too far away. Within the same winter, I'm trying to see if I can upgrade the veggie farms a second time. Keep in mind that for veggie plots this big, they're optimized for 4 families, which means level 4 with a housing extension, which means as you progress to the late game, the same design of veggie burgage plot only gets better. You can't say that for small veggie plots, whose yield will not scale if you add more families later on. In a future video, I hope to share more on veggie and fruit research, optimal size, and so on. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, go ahead and subscribe so you'll see it as soon as I post it. Quick food check, we're pretty good for eggs and milk, and we have a ton of pork that will later turn some of into sausages. Trade check. I want to show you how much it costs to import barley, even though we're already growing our own, all just to support the ale requirements. But with just one mega cabbage farm, we more than pay for it. And those veggie farms aren't even level 4 yet. We're going to need shoes and a level 2 church. We've already got a ton of hides for all the goats we've been keeping, so we'll just need a tannery and a cobbler artisan. We're going to need to convert some rubblestone to get 10 mortar, which we'll need a temporary lime kiln for. We're going to need to harvest some clay and turn them into roof tiles, 20 of those. And finally, we're going to need to import 20 dressed stone. Of course, all of this could have been done during the winter, but I actually wasn't planning on playing this far into the game. But we're so close, just one more turn, which in this case means 8 months, because I forgot to purchase the major trade route for dressed stone. But anyways, second trade check, 700 spent on barley, but 1100 taken in from cabbages, and that's with a trade limit of 100 cabbage. We're also selling shoes, clothes, and by the way, look how much we're making on shoes. Food check at 55 food consumed per year. We're looking at 10 different foods at sustainable surplus. This is excluding sausages, which we can get pretty quick, excluding carp, which we need 2 more years for the fishing pool to recover, and the 3 fruits, which will need another 2 or 3 years to reach full yield. It's winter again, and now it's time to go to level 4 on these massive farms, and a second butcher, which I will do sausages. And because I'm greedy, I'm going to be importing wheat so that I can export more bread. This does require a bakery and workers at the farm all year round to convert the wheat sheaves into wheat grain. If you can do that, it's free profit. What do we do with all that profit? Well, we max out the retinue and buy them all birthday presents. We are in the end game, and there's honestly not much left to do. Build a bunch of foresters. Oh, the raiders are here. We're in year 5, and this is the second coming of the raiders. This time they've brought 4 units, but it's bad news for them. I've got 72 crossbows. Couldn't think of a better way to end the video, so I'm going to call it here. I hope you had fun. See you guys in the next one.